you love him, you are absolutely sure of that. You chose him and you'd choose him again. You absolutely care about this marriage. But friend, when he reaches for you at night, something in you goes quiet. Not angry, not repulsed at all, just kind of absent and dull. And the silence in your own body, it confuses you, and frankly it scares you a little bit, and maybe kind of a lot, because in your mind you're thinking, if I love him, then wouldn't I want him? That question has probably lived in you longer than you'd like to admit it. And today we're going to answer that. And that sounds like a really bold statement. Like, at the end of the day, we'll give you 5 points and you'll have it all answered. Likely it'll be more of a scratching of the surface, right? So, hey there, friend, welcome back to Rip It Off, where we rip off the lies purity culture taught you about sex and rebuild biblical intimacy in your marriage without shame. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found this place. And if you've been around a while, you already know we don't tiptoe around the hard stuff. But friends, before we get in, I have something really fun to share with you. Actually, 2 things. Actually, kind of 3 things, but the last one will be really, really short. First, I updated the website. Oh my gosh, it is so pretty. And if you have not jumped on Claude AI, I don't know why. I have just found it, and now my Instagram feed is filled with all the Claude things. Claude literally helped me build the website. It's beautiful. Go check it out. But the second thing, which is really the thing that I want you to know about, is within there is a quiz. If you go to itsmemichellcastro.com, up in the top right-hand corner, it says, take the quiz. And it is a quiz. If you've already, obviously it's a quiz. I just said it's a quiz. If you're on my email list, you have already heard about this. It's so good. It's 12 questions, maybe 3 minutes long. That's it. And it's called What's Actually Going On with Intimacy in Your Marriage. You're like, I would like to know that. So whether you feel like you're struggling or just getting by, or maybe even starting to figure things out, this will help you see where you are and what your next step could be. Is it the end all and be all? No, use wisdom and discernment with this. This is a quiz. There's like 5 answers within each question. So somewhere you're going to have to find the one that fits you the best. This is not the end all and be all. Please, again, use discernment as you go through this. You can go through it again. There are 6 results of that. Read through the whole thing and be like, oh, does this actually sound like me? Yeah. And it's not to like diagnose you. There's like no whatever, but just kind of a way to feel like you're not alone. So again, you can find it at itsmemichellcastro.com. Really a simple interactive way to put words to the things that you've been feeling for a long time, but didn't quite know how to say those. Okay. The third thing, I haven't put this all together yet, but this is episode 48, which means that episode 50 is coming. And I thought that would be a really good time to tell you the title of the book. So I have an email. Go ahead and click it. It'll be in the show notes, where you can, if you're not already on my email list, you can get on it and see the options and participate. Like, I would love that. It would mean so much. And I will announce it on the 50th episode. I did have this big goal to get 100 reviews by the middle of April to celebrate the first year. That's not going to happen. We're at like 29 reviews. So I don't know, maybe we could get to 35. Of course, that would have been way more realistic from the beginning, but I don't do that. So I'm like, go big or go home. Unless 71 of you want to go and leave a review. That'd be amazing. Did you also know that I shows are on YouTube and TikTok, and there's some interesting conversations going on in some of the YouTube comments. Not quite sure. Some of them, I get it. Like, purity culture has done some damage. So I'm here for it. And I will try to always answer in a loving and understanding way, but also pointing to truth. So, okay, here we go. Episode 48. Before I say anything else, I want to say this clearly. I want you to hear it before we go anywhere. So low desire, which is what we're talking about today, low desire does not mean something is wrong with your marriage. It doesn't mean something is wrong with you spiritually. And this episode is not here to heap more shame on you. It is here to help you figure out what is actually going on and show you a way through it. It's the same with the quiz. Like, it's not to like heap more things on you. It's hopefully to say, yes, this is speaking to me. Now, what do I do next? And I always want to point you back to God's word, and I want to give you those resources. So, because low desire is not a mystery, it has causes, real, nameable, understandable causes. And when you can name what's driving it, you can actually do something about it. We talk about that in so many different areas of our life. Let's apply it to sex and intimacy in our marriage. So I want to also tell you up front, I'm going to get personal in this episode. I mean, what's new? I get personal in this episode, but I always do, because I didn't come to this topic from the outside. I have lived it. And I think my story might be part of yours. I had a conversation the other day and she was like, how'd you get started in this? And my joke is always like, I grew up saying, I want to talk about sex when I grow up. No, that's the last thing I ever wanted to talk about. But God has, he uses our story. So let me tell you a little bit about my story. And I always leave breadcrumbs throughout the episodes, sharing a little bit. And the book definitely goes into more of it. And it's all in one space. So you don't have to like go back and forth and, 20 different episodes. But I want to start here because I think it absolutely matters that you know that this isn't theoretical for me. Like, this isn't something where I felt impassioned about, I feel passionate about just because, I had friends who were struggling with this. This is something that I have lived. Like, if you want to talk about pregnancy loss and miscarriage and stillbirth, like, I can share my story because I've lived those things. This intimacy and low desire and sex and not understanding God's design for it within marriage is something that I have lived. And I want to comment that was on one of my YouTube was something about how Christians use intimacy instead of sex. And that is so true. It's just a nicer word sometimes, but God doesn't shy away from talking about sex. And I try not to shy away from talking about it either. But I look at it as this like umbrella. There's so much other things, and you can also download the 13 types of intimacy and look into that. And if you're only thinking of intimacy as sex, then that's not what God designed. So anyways, I grew up in the church. I absorbed the messages we've unpacked here in the last few episodes. And I want to say this very clearly, and I will say this every day and until I'm blue in the face. I love my church. I love the way that I was raised there. I appreciate the strong doctrinal and theological platform or foundation that I was raised upon. My message is never the church got it all wrong. I think that there's a lot of ways that it could have been said better, but I really do believe, in my experience, your experience might be different. My experience, I do believe that the church did the best that they could with the information that they had. And I believe the same for my personal upbringing with my family. I love my parents. I love the way that I was raised. It was a very safe and protected environment, and I'm grateful for that. But when we know more, we do more, right? And it's not even when we know better. My parents did the best they could with what they had. And so this is never a I blame the church message or an I blame my parents message, but this is my personal story. Maybe for you, there was actual sexual damage that was done in either or both of those cases. So I want to get that out of the way. So, we've talked about a lot of different things in this message. I absorbed those messages that we've been unpacking, and I waited until marriage, or the messages being wait until marriage. Your body is your value. Good girls don't want. And I did what a lot of women did. I built a theology around those messages unconsciously over years. And I think that's so important. It was an unconscious building of theology over years, little by little. That theology said sex is something I give, not something I participate in, not something I enjoy, something I provide, because that is what a good wife does. So let me back up for just 1 second. My story, I think, is unique in some ways and not unique in other ways, because desire was not an issue when my husband and I were dating and when we first got married. I wanted my husband. Like, I desired him physically, and I enjoyed sex, and I wanted more of that. That was not my issue necessarily. I didn't think that there was an issue with wanting to have sex with my husband. Like, I was all in on that. I'm like, yes, please, let's do this. But here's what I also need to tell you is that this part has taken me a long time to say out loud. It wasn't just bad theology, it was years of a lot of things, right? We don't live life in isolation. We don't live life in these solitary events. They all build upon each other, right? So I had a great foundation, but there were some wonky things that happened and that tweaked, that allowed for, I don't even know how to say that, just allowed for me to put into practice things in a wrong way. And what I mean by that is there were some very clear things that my husband made choices on. Now, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Like again, I'm not here to point fingers at one thing or the other, and these are things that my husband and I have talked about for a long time. Was my holding back and my misunderstanding and my unwillingness to maybe do things, did that cause him to do things? I don't know. We're still responsible for the choices that we made. So my husband made choices in our marriage that gave me real reasons to build walls, real hurt, real disconnection. Now, I chose to do that. There was hurt. I chose to protect myself. And what I want to be really careful about here is I'm not here to assign blame. I'm telling you this because I think a lot of women are sitting in the same place that I was, carrying both of these things at once: bad theology from church and real wounds from the marriage. Here's the thing: those wounds do not happen in isolation. I am not saying if your husband has stepped out on your marriage that you are to blame there. But in my personal situation, there was no betrayal. My husband did not have an affair, but there was hurts. And there was betrayal in other ways, but not sexual betrayal in that he went outside of my marriage to find sexual fulfillment. He was not addicted to pornography, but there's still hurt. Those wounds might not be the obvious ones, but they still show up. Betrayal was not it. Like, he didn't have sex outside my marriage, but there was hurt. And I hadn't heard many people talking about how those two things layer on top of each other: hurt and a lack of language. This episode is going to be a little bit longer. Sorry, girls, whatever. I'll try and speed things up. But it's so important that I want to make sure that this foundation is laid very carefully. So, like I said, I hadn't heard a lot of people talking about how those two things layer on top of each other, how they reinforce each other, how the walls you built for one reason get thicker for another reason shows up to justify them. So I felt very justified in me, building up these walls instead of having a conversation with my husband and talking through those things. I can't tell you what would have happened then. I can only tell you what the Lord has done now. And here's the reality I had to realize, and I want you to understand: you are not broken. Your marriage is not hopeless. I had to realize for me, I was not broken. My marriage was not hopeless. And I had to get honest about both of those layers before anything can change. Low desire almost never has just one cause, and you can't fix what you haven't named. And friend, you can take that into all areas of our life. If you're frustrated with a lot of things, if you can't get to the heart of it, then it's going to be really hard to fix it if you don't know what it is that is the issue. And maybe you need to seek a mentor, seek biblical counseling. So many of different things. Obviously, take it to the Lord. Okay, guys, I want to get through this without it being like a part two. So, real causes of low desire and why none of them are a spiritual failure. Okay, so let's name some things, because I think one of the cruelest things about low desire in Christian women is that women are left to wonder in silence what is wrong with them spiritually, emotionally, physically, and the answer is almost never what they fear. So, it could be purity culture wounds. I'm going to fly past these. We've been in this for 2 episodes and so many more, but maybe it's those purity culture wounds. Maybe it's hormones and physical changes. Friend, I am 52 years old. I am postmenopausal. And can I just tell you, perimenopause does a wonder, but so does postpartum, so does thyroid issues, so does birth control. There are real physiological drivers of desire or the absence thereof. What about emotional disconnection? This one is huge and hugely underestimated. For most women, desire is not primarily physical, it is relational. Figure out some ways that you can connect with your husband. Go download the 13 types of intimacy. You can go find it at itsmemichellcastro.com/resources, I think, or if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, it's there too. Number 4, relational wounds that never healed. This is the one I lived. Actually, I lived all of these on top of each other. So when your husband has hurt you through betrayal, neglect, patterns, they made you feel small. And here's the thing, in my case, my husband is the most impatient person that I know, truly, except when it came to this. He has been so patient over the 28 years, almost 28 years of our marriage. He has been so patient and so generous and thoughtful and wanted me to enjoy sex and intimacy in ways that I was just not letting myself. So low desire is almost always a signal, not a sin, a signal that something underneath needs attention. It might be a sin. It might be. You need to have it out with the Lord. Okay, number 3, what scripture says. We're gonna start with 1 Corinthians 7. And we're going to talk about this because we absolutely have to. 1 Corinthians 7 and a lot of these scriptures are said with good intention. If you're watching me on YouTube, I'm like struggling through this. Anyways, 1 Corinthians 7 in this episode and in other places, if you are a Christian woman struggling with low desire, there's a very good chance that someone, your husband, a pastor, a well-meaning friend, has pointed you to 1 Corinthians 7 in a way that felt like a compass and more like a verdict. I'm sorry, less like a compass and more like a verdict. Don't deprive each other. I've heard it too. Here's what I want to say about that passage, and I want to say it clearly. 1 Corinthians 7 is a passage about, ready for this? About mutuality. Mutuality. That means both of you. It is not a passage about performance. It's not a passage that gives one spouse the right to pressure, guilt, or coerce the other. Paul's entire argument runs in both directions. The husband's body belongs to the wife. The wife's body belongs to the husband. The obligation is equal. The care is mutual. When 1 Corinthians 7 is used as a weapon, when it is yielded by a husband to make his wife feel that her struggle with desire is a sin she is committing against him, that is an absolute misuse of scripture. And it's worth naming it as that. Okay? Go read 1 Corinthians 7. It talks about the husband's body belongs to the wife. The wife's body belongs to the husband. But so often we hear from the male perspective that your body belongs to him. Sure, it's both. It's both. Alongside that, there are other scriptures of Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Christ did not coerce the church. He laid his life down for her. He pursued her with patience and sacrifice and selfless love. That is the standard Paul gives husbands, not performance. Proverbs 5:18, may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. Rejoice. That is a word of delight, of celebration, of genuine pleasure in the other person, not obligation, not management. Rejoicing. Song of Solomon shows us two people who are genuinely, mutually delighted in each other. She pursues him, he pursues her. There's no scorekeeping. There's so many more. So I want to take a minute and first I'm going to say this. Scripture was never meant to be a pressure campaign. It is a picture of what love pursued faithfully and mutually can look like. Okay? I have husbands who are emailing me. I love it. Husbands, keep emailing me, DMing me. I love it. So this is for you. And maybe to the wife who's going to, to the wife who needs to hear this said out loud. I want to take a moment and speak directly to you or to that wife who might be sharing this episode with him because he is part of this story. Absolutely. We can't do this in isolation, right? Maybe you're pretending otherwise does not help anyone. He is absolutely part of the story. Husbands, you are part of this story. Live with your wife in an understanding way. If you are a husband whose wife has low desire, I see you. The loneliness in that is real. The rejection even when it's not intended as rejection, lands like rejection. Your desire for your wife is not wrong. Your longing for connection is not wrong. And the grief of feeling like you are on the outside of her, that is real and deserves to be named. But here is what I also need you to hear. Pressure does not produce desire. Guilt does not produce desire. Quoting 1 Corinthians 7 at your wife does not produce desire. I know you mean well. Absolutely. What produces desire in a woman is safety, emotional connection, feeling seen and valued and chosen, not just in the bedroom, but in the ordinary moments of the day. Husband, listen to me for a second. If your wife is talking to you, put your phone down, look in her eyes. Look in her eyes. I promise she's not going to talk for an hour. Well, she might talk for an hour, but say, hey, you have my attention. Just give her the attention. That is probably one of the sexiest things you can do. Put your phone down, move it away, and look at her. If there are relational wounds between you, things you did or didn't do, patterns that built walls neither of you fully understand, those wounds matter. They are not excuses. They are information, and they are asking to be addressed. Ephesians 5 calls you to the kind of love that lays itself down, that listens before it asks, that seeks to understand before it seeks to be understood. If your wife's body is telling her something is not safe, the most loving thing you can do is help her feel safe, not lobby for access. I tell my husband all the time, put your hand in the blender, put your hand in the blender, like do the thing that you don't want to do. When I am struggling, what I actually need is for him to put his arms around me and squeeze me, like give me a hug. I need safety. That is what I need. Ask your wife. Ask your wife. And there's a good chance that she's going to be like, I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. Wait with her on this. Oh, man, friend, I'm sorry. I got a lot to say. The husband who pursues his wife's heart before her body is the husband who eventually gets both. Okay, last, low desire is a signal. Here's how to start listening to it. I want to close the main content of this episode with a reframe because I think it is the one that changes everything. Low desire is not a verdict on you. You are not there forever. You're not diagnosed staying there forever. It is not evidence that you are a bad wife, a cold woman, a spiritually deficient Christian. It is a signal, and signals have sources, and sources can be addressed. If your low desire is rooted in purity culture wounds, the work we started in episode 47 and 48 is part of your path forward. I think those are the right episodes. The theology needs to be rebuilt. That takes time, and it's worth every minute. If it's rooted in physical causes, hormones, postpartum changes, medication, please see a doctor, a good doctor who takes women's health seriously and doesn't dismiss what you are experiencing. A holistic practitioner would be great who looks at you as a whole person and doesn't look at those hormones just in isolation. You deserve medical support, not just spiritual encouragement. If it's rooted in emotional disconnection or unhealed relational wounds, that is a conversation that needs to happen maybe with your husband, maybe first with a counselor, but the walls do not come down by themselves, and they do not come down by willpower. They come down when the things that built them get addressed. None of these paths are quick. All of them are worth it. And you do not have to walk any of them alone. You are not broken. You are responding, and there is a difference. Okay, let's bring this home. I'm just curious, friends. I know I talk fast, and I'm wondering if you guys speed me up. How fast do I sound? If you are in a season of low desire, here is what I want you to carry out of this episode. You are not a bad wife. You are not spiritually failing. You are not broken beyond repair. You are a woman who was probably handed bad theology, who may have real wounds in her marriage that built real walls. You may have a body going through physical changes, real physical changes, and who has been quietly suffering alone because nobody in the church gave you language for any of it. So today I'm giving you language, and I'm giving you an invitation. Give yourself grace, not as a pass to stay stuck. That is permission to be a human being in process. You did not get here overnight. You will not get out of it overnight. And that's okay. That's okay. I know I gained 5 pounds overnight and I want to lose it in half a day. Doesn't work that way. Give your husband grace, not as a pass for anything that hurts you, but as an an acknowledgement that he is probably carrying his own confusion and loneliness and not knowing how to reach you without it going wrong. And then when you're ready, in whatever way feels possible, start a conversation, not about sex, but about the distance, because that's really the root cause, the distance, about what you each need, about what safety looks like for you, and what has hurt and what has helped. That conversation is not the whole solution, but it's almost always the beginning of one. If this episode gave you something, share it. Share it with that one woman who is quietly carrying this alone. She might not have the words for it yet. Give her yours. Give her these words. Share it in your stories. Pass it along. And if you want to go deeper, if you need someone to walk this with, reach out. I'm here. All the links are below. I love you. I'm so proud of you for showing up for this. I'll see you next week, and go check out the quiz. It's me, Michelle Castro. Love you. Bye.